right, now we're going to call. Good afternoon. Call to order our afternoon work session. We have council section. Thank you. We have our invocation by Father from St. Mary Orthodox Church.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we stand for prayer? Oh, Heavenly Father, we are standing before you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting, the City Council agenda. Oh Lord, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. As the Spirit says, if any one of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. We ask in faith, impart your supreme wisdom upon our matters so that it reach a successful condition. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. Glory be to God.
Amen.
Councilor Stevenson, lead us in the pledge.
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have one certificate for appointment today. It's Mr. Ron Malone, present. Mr. Malone has agreed to work and serve on our reappointment to our Centennial Authority, and I would like to thank you for your service and your continued work.
Thank you very much.
Anything you would like to say?
Just thank you all for the opportunity to serve again. I look forward to representing the city's interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Also, the mayor and Councilman Stewart are excused. We are now at our consent agenda items. I have one pulled item today, which is H1. Are there any others? Seeing none.
Move approval of the remainder.
Okay.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. H1, Stormwater Fund, pulled by Councilman Mandel.
Yes, and this has to do with a project on Swan Street that's been ongoing for quite a while. I understand now that the delays were due to weather issues and some difficult ground conditions, and that we're now on track to be done by the end of September. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well then I would like to go ahead and move for approval on that as well.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly second to approve item H1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. Motion carries. We now move to our Planning Commission report.
So we'll begin, as we always do, by reviewing what's currently on your public hearing agenda for the next evening hearing before we start adding to it. So there's currently one zoning case, Z1819, and one comprehensive plan update chunk, which was CP2C, the chapters dealing with economic prosperity, equity, and expanding housing choices. There's also 3 sidewalk petitions on the agenda now. So first item out of Planning Commission is a rezoning case, C3518. This is located north of Hillsborough Street towards Meredith College, and is a request to rezone about 2.5 acres from R6 to R10 conditional use, both with the residential parking overlay. The unique circumstances here are a pre-existing condition of a multifamily units on the same lot as a single-family house, and a desire to be able to replace the single-family house while legalizing the non-conforming multifamily units. Planning Commission recommended approval on a 10-0 vote. The Hillsborough Wade CAC recommended approval on an 18-3 vote, and the RHDC, which also was consulted because of historic resource on the site, also recommended approval on a 7-4 vote. Staff recommends public hearing date of July 2nd.
All right, any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Great. So, next item is a zoning condition text change, TZZ 119. This is located 5001 Spring Forest Road, and this is to amend the conditions associated with the zoning case for the property originally passed in 2008. This would essentially allow multifamily development to occur on attractive land where it would not be permitted under the current zoning. And we recommend this for also for July 2nd public hearing. The Planning Commission voted to unanimously to recommend approval of this item.
Okay,
There was I believe, a CAC vote, which is not in the minutes, that was at the time adverse to the proposal.
So Ken, can I just ask for clarity just for a moment?
Yes.
On the top side of your presentation, I think you listed 6 items that will be on our public hearing for July 2nd. These are in addition to that, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Is there any time limits on this one?
Yeah, I believe there's a time limit of 60 days to notice the hearing.
Okay. Motion to approve.
all right, it's moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Great. Next item out of Planning Commission is a text change. This is the third piece of the omnibus list, and this deals with processes and procedures. There's a long list of changes, but this is all items that were thoroughly reviewed in Growth and Natural Resources Committee, and it deals with review authority over certain variances and administrative decisions, as well as that's primarily as well as notice for non-single family single unit living subdivisions in a Metro Park overlay district, and some other posting and notice items.
Motion to approve.
That's moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Okay. So fourth item is CP2B 19. So this is yet another chunk of the comprehensive plan update. This primarily the chapter is dealing with land use and transportation. So it's the land use, transportation, urban design chapters. The Planning Commission recommended approval on a 9-1 vote with some number of recommended changes which were included in the backup materials for this item. And again, we're recommending a July 2nd public hearing.
All right. This one is very detailed. There's a lot of information. I would move that we set this one for September the 3rd.
Second.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Right now, I assume there's nothing on September 3rd.
Not that we're aware of.
All right.
So Mr.
Now,
Branch.
there's one,
Yeah.
I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Branch, there's just one more item that we need to add is item number 6 under report and recommendation from the Planning Commission. Item CP 419 was discussed at the June 11th Planning Commission meeting where the Commission recommended approval. This comprehensive plan amendment would alter the street plan map to remove proposed segments of Oak Forest Drive and Triangle Town Boulevard. Due to an issue with the online agenda portal, the recommendation was not included in today's agenda. I believe that this item should advance with other matters that were concluded on June 11th Planning Commission meeting. Therefore, I would like to make a motion to add case CP 419 to July 2nd public hearing and ask staff to provide required notice of the public meeting.
All right, second. All right, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll have special items. The first one is on-street parking, Wake Forest Road, Blunt Street, Person Street, Improvement Phase 1. This is one that I actually had asked held until some more information. Staff came back, provided the information. They addressed my questions and concerns, so I actually move for approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Next, we have Leesville Road Part B Improvement Project.
Staff is here to make a presentation to follow up on the direction from council on the next two road projects.
Okay.
I had a folder earlier. Did you see it? I don't see my folder. There's nothing there. Sorry, we're having a little trouble locating the presentation. My apologies. It's right here. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Kenneth Ritchie with Engineering Services, here to provide an update on the Leesville Road Part B Improvement Project. As just a little bit of a brief history update on the project, the proposed design for this project, which stretches from O'Neill Road to Westgate Road, is a 4-lane divided avenue consistent with the comprehensive plan. That length is about between 0.9 and 1 mile, budget of about $11,600,000 in Council District E. So a little bit of a timeline on the project history. On May 4th of 2018, the RFQ for design services was advertised for the Leesville Road project. The design contract for the selected consultant RK&K was brought forward on February 5th. During that time, council directed staff to engage with the citizens in the area by method of a listening session to solicit some further feedback on the proposed design and look to include some of that feedback with the future of this project. On May 2nd of 2019, that listening session was held, and we want to provide some feedback from that meeting. So during that May 2nd listening session, there were approximately 135 citizens in attendance, and total, both in person and online, we received approximately 200 comments regarding the proposed design. For anybody providing online feedback, there is the option for them to provide a rating on their support for the project on a scale of, I believe, 1 to 10. That the average rating that was received during that online feedback was 4, which was slightly below average support for the design, and that was from 115 responses. When looking at the feedback that was received during that meeting, certainly a significant number of that was regarding the median due to concerns for increased speeds, and given the residential context, certainly between O'Neill and Fairbanks. And then to the desire for a center turn lane. There certainly were some comments regarding the traffic volumes and saying that they did not warrant 4 lanes. Some were concerned that the wider road and right-of-way will decrease property values, while there were others that were on the opposite side of that discussion regarding the increase due to the addition of sidewalks and multi-use paths. Another concern that was raised during some of that was regarding potential interference with septic systems on private property. So taking this into consideration with the feedback that was provided, what we would like to present are really 3 options for your consideration. And when we get to option 3, we'll go into a little bit more detail as there's some other considerations associated with that too. So option 1 would be proceed as planned with the 4-lane divided cross-section consistent with the comp plan. Option 2 would be to cancel the project and reallocate the funding. Or option 3 would be to proceed with the project, but direct staff to implement a 2-lane divided or a modified cross-section. There have been some discussions with NCDOT regarding a modified section,
and there currently are no objections from DOT with regards to that. So with regards to option 3, what are some considerations if we look at a modified section? So the first would be trying to project out for the future, knowing that the comp plan does prescribe a 4-lane divided avenue. If we do go with a modified section, do we go ahead and acquire the right-of-way necessary to long-term accommodate a 4-lane divided section? That would go ahead, and if we did have to widen in the future, we would not be going back out and reacquiring property to facilitate that widening. 2, with a modified cross-section and looking at the future widening possibilities to the 4-lane divided. When we construct that modified cross-section, do we look at constructing that cross-section with curb and gutter or swale? On this slide, you can kind of see what that would look like in the context of construction. The top is our typical 2-lane avenue divided section. Certainly with the implementation of the wider right-of-way, the discussions and consideration need to be had as to the location of any kind of sidewalk or multi-use facilities. Are those placed at the ultimate location, or are they placed in what could ultimately be a temporary situation if we're looking at future widening down the road? And then to the swale, if you were to go to a ribbon pavement section with the swale, ultimately that provides for that future widening to the outside, and then certainly, as you can see, does have the ability to accommodate the pedestrian facilities that would accommodate or accompany this section. Another consideration, which was kind of hit at briefly with that last section, would be if we are looking to set up for future widening, does that widening occur to the inside? So do we set up for a larger median that allows us to widen to the inside, or do we set up for that widening to the outside? And I've got a couple images that will kind of depict that here. So for the section with the widening to the inside, you would essentially establish a larger median. You would set your sidewalk at and curb and gutter and the outside lane at its ultimate location. You would leave the median open for that to accommodate the future widening. For the widening to the outside, much like was shown with the swale section, the ditch and swale section would then, with future widening, go away to be replaced with the outside lane and the curb and gutter. And then one final consideration with regards to option 3 would be a hybrid option. Would be looking at implementing a 2-lane divided section between O'Neill and Fairbanks, and then potentially looking at a 4-lane divided between Fairbanks and Westgate through the more commercial areas along this corridor.
And by 2-lane divided, you mean 2-lane with a center turn?
2 lanes with a center median or a center turn lane, and certainly I think assessment through the design phase, if there is the ability to appropriately locate center turn lanes to help facilitate that, I certainly think that can be explored and assessed.
Assumption is that in the section between O'Neill and Fairbanks, there's fewer intersections, fewer curb cuts, and so you could have a mix of medians and turn pockets or something?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So this is in my district, and I did go to the meeting that the 135 people were at, and I read all the comments that were sent in online, and I feel very strongly that option 3 is the right one to go with. As far as which whether A, B, C, or D, I'm less certain about that. One of the issues that seemed to come up in the meeting was whether or how realistic is it to think that there will be funding at some point in the future to to put this through all the way so that it would make sense to to get the right of way to accommodate the 4-lane at some point. I'm asking you to predict the future. I realize that, but
to be honest, I think we'll have to go back and look at that.
Okay.
So certainly we can follow up.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So what are the traffic numbers looking like?
So the current year ADT we have calculated 17,000. The future ADT, the 2045 future, is projecting out to about 21,800.
And so where would that typically fall in y'all's design recommendations with that volume of traffic?
So typically in that would fall in the 3 lane just based on those volumes there today.
So if we did a 2-lane, then we'd be short selling ourselves?
Well, so I guess when we say 2 lanes, so basically 1 lane in each direction, then a median, and then you could look at where appropriate or needed, the center turn lane. So I guess let me kind of go back on my wording on that. So the 2-lane median divided can give you the 3-lane section.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a constant median?
Combination. So take, for example, what we did on Sandy Forks Road. That's a 2-lane median divided where we went back and introduced some center turn lanes on that project.
Right, okay. And then as far as if you do go with the curb and gutter, this is a state road, is that correct?
That's correct.
I know we're gonna have to pay for it though. So with curb and gutter being added, who pays for that? Is that part of the project cost, or the people on the road pay for it?
That would be part of project cost.
Okay, so no cost to them?
No, I'm not aware of that.
So
Okay.
what's the advantages of one over the other, swell and curb and gutter, in this particular?
I think really it kind of comes down to what are we projecting for the future. If you installing the curb and gutter now with a potential of widening in the future, obviously we would have to come out and there would be some demo work that would be associated with that. If you set up the swale section, that allows for a little bit easier transition, less demo when it comes to the future widening.
So do we know what the cost differential is between the swell and the curb and gutter?
So I'll just give you some rough numbers here. So looking at a 3-lane section, shoulder section right now, roughly about 9.3 million on this. I just want to make council aware that we went back on the Part B, which is this here, and went back and looked at some engineering estimates and right-of-way acquisition cost. And I know Kenneth had mentioned the 11.6 million. We're probably looking in the ballpark based on just construction cost, probably around 14 million if you were to look at a 4-lane median divided, okay, the full cross section. So I just want to make you aware on that. But the 3-lane shoulder section, we're looking at about 9.3 million.
And what's the total distance of this?
So this one is 0.9 miles, and then the other section, which would be section C from Lynn to O'Neill, that's 1.75 miles.
Okay, so it's a little higher than some of the ones we saw earlier in our work session today, because that seemed to be running around $10 million a mile.
Yeah, it is, and like I say, just based on some of the impacts and things that you're dealing with, you've got well and septic on maybe a good portion of this here. So again, that's just taking our best estimates on this right now.
So can you go back one slide? And I think this kind of relates to what I think I heard in response to Councilor Thompson. So the last bullet down there at the bottom, is that saying that this 2045 trip volume could be accommodated adequately by the 3-lane section?
Based off the numbers, yes, it does appear that way.
Okay. So if that's true, then maybe we don't need the full 4-lane divided right-of-way. If by 2045 we're going to be still adequate with the 3-lane section. It just doesn't seem like we need to buy a bunch of right-of-way that we're not going to need for another 25 years, if then. So.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of the people in attendance at the meeting were concerned about just doing this 1-lane stretch, 1 mile stretch at 3 lanes, or at 4 lanes, and then going back down to 2, with no kind of indication of when in the future they might get some relief from that. So I think going with the 2-lane divided with either the medians or the turn lanes is really the way to go.
And is that with a curb or swale? I prefer a swale personally. I think
It gives you more options in the
well,
future.
it's more of a low impact development solution.
Septic tanks.
So
Yeah.
the one thing to be mindful of with the swale section that you will notice here is that while you're only doing 2 lanes of pavement, the right-of-way to accommodate that is larger and is actually more on par with the Avenue 4-lane, 104 feet, just because of the shoulder requirements in the ditch design.
And you're showing bike lanes with the curb and gutter, but not with the swale, is that?
So and I think I think there's different ways to use this. Obviously, with the 10-foot multi-purpose path, that would be intended to
Right.
Oh, I see.
to accommodate
Okay.
that.
Okay. So either way, you're taking care of bicycle and pedestrian. Okay.
So there's a more of a right-of-way take, but maybe less construction than in a curb and gutter and no,
Okay.
piped stormwater system. Is that kind of a wash, maybe?
So and with the swell, you're taking what would be that extra lane.
Correct.
Okay.
So there'd be less of an impact on property owners if we went with the curb and gutter in terms of right-of-way acquisition?
Certainly from what right-of-way would be necessary to accommodate that street section.
Okay. Then I think I'd be leaning towards the curb and gutter.
I agree.
Okay, so now, how does that, how about if we move that curb in and put the bike lane out there on the multipurpose so we don't have as much asphalt between the curbs and have a wider path so we can get the bicycles out of the roadway?
So a bigger path in a smaller lane.
Yeah, move the curb in and put the bike out of the curb, outside of the curb.
Separation.
I don't know that there's a significant difference in that right-of-way, because with the 5-lane, or the 5-foot bike lane, and typically you've got a 10-foot multi-use path, so
So what's the design speed for the roadway?
45.
design speed is,
It'll be 40
Be-
design as
yep.
opposed to 35.
Imagining we would, that speed, we'd always want those bicyclists out here. So move that curb in and put them out here. What I recommend.
Yeah, but I think what he's saying, as far as you would probably have less pavement, but as far as use land, it's the same.
The same.
And all I'm saying is let's
It'd be
make
safer,
the
though, yeah.
bicyclists safer by
Okay.
getting them out of the travel lane with the
But-
cars.
But it would still be less right away to buy than the swell version of it.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
buying into the curb and gutter. I'm just saying put the bikes outside the curb instead of inside the curb.
So what's the motion?
So I move that we accept 3B with curb and gutter and move the bike lane outside the curb and gutter.
Second.
Which is to say, we're gonna, the actual curb to curb would be reduced. Inside the curbs would be reduced because we don't need to put the bike lane in that 5 feet anymore, right?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or we can look at what that design looks like in terms of accommodating the bike facilities outside of the pavement.
What's a motion and a second?
And
Right. Okay. So we had a motion and a second. Any more questions?
just a quick point of clarification, we also need you to approve the design contract today, too.
Okay.
Okay. Move to approve the design contract as well.
Okay. It's been moved and properly second to approve option 3 with curb and gutter, including this design contract. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same right. Motion passes. All right. Thank you. All right. Next, we have Marsh Creek and Treywick.
So this is an update on the second of the listening sessions that were the direction of council after the design contracts were put forth for consideration on February 5th. So this is Marsh Creek Road and Treywick Road Improvement Project. Just a little recap of the project details. The proposed design is a 3-lane undivided avenue from Capitol Boulevard to New Hope Road. Length is approximately 1.38 miles with a budget of $10.7 million. Timeline on the history for this, much like Leesville Road, the RFQ for design services was advertised on May 4th of 2018. The design contract was presented on February 5th of this year with direction from council during that consideration to engage with the citizens in a listening session. That listening session was held on April 30th, 2019, and we can provide the following feedback on the listening session. That listening session, there were 35 citizens in attendance. In total, online and in-person ballot, we received about 100 comments. Again, with the online submittals, there is the ability to provide a rating on support for the project. The average rating online was 6, which was slightly above average support, and that was from 63 of the respondents. When looking at the comments received, certainly one of the highest comments we got was the need for continuous sidewalk from Capitol Boulevard to New Hope Road. There was concern with the center turn lane or median with an increase in both traffic and speed. But on the contrary to that too, there were comments received that said these improvements will make the corridor safer. And there was some feedback regarding needed improvements on Skycrest Road. Taking the comments, there we go. Options. So in looking at, again, options for consideration with regards to Marsh Creek, option 1 would be to proceed as planned with the 3-lane undivided section. A second option would be to cancel the project and reallocate those funds. And certainly option 3 would be to have the design consultant kind of look at, in the context of the section, the ability to intermix some of these center turn lane options as appropriate to help facilitate some of the turning movements through there. In assessing that, staff's recommendation would be to approve the contract for design services for a 2-lane median divided street with HDR in the amount of $1,319,360, but allowing the design consultant the flexibility to explore integrating the feedback received during the listening session to try and respond back to the citizens' concerns.
So this is in my district, that last bullet about design flexibility. I would like to ask that we hold this for 2 weeks so that I can talk with staff to understand more about what that means. I know that there are people, because of driveway access and so forth, are concerned about widening this to 2 lanes with a median or 2 lanes with a center turn lane. And I want to meet with staff and understand where we can have that flexibility before we vote on this.
Sure, certainly.
Okay. All right. Without objection, we'll hold this for 2 weeks to give you that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we move to our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. As the staff gets ready to make the next presentation, I just want to take a couple of moments to introduce it. This next item is John Chavis Memorial Park Improvements Project, updates from our construction bidding process. As we all know, staff and the city has spent a considerable amount of time on this community park project, and we all know that this is a very critical and high priority project, not only for our overall parks and recreation system, but also for the city as a whole. We also know about the current bid environment. As you've seen on many other projects, we are seeing very large escalations in our bids. And as a North Carolina city, we are required to bid and take the lowest responsible bidder on a construction contract. The purpose today is to update you on that bidding process, where we are on the project, review some options that we're giving you, and seek directions on next steps. From the staff perspective, though, I do want to make one point in that we are very, very committed to this project. It's obviously critical. It's taken a really long time. There's folks here who probably know that history much better than we do. But we are very much committed to figuring out a way to advancing this project forward, and the staff has spent a lot of time looking at ways we can do just that. So with that, I'll turn over to Priscilla Williams in Engineering Services to give you the update and offer some options.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, Branch, and members of council. This afternoon, Construction Management and Parks and Recreation will provide you with an update on the recent bid results for the John Chavis Memorial Park and present recommendations in moving this project forward. Here's a brief chronology of the project, which was initiated in 2014 with the adoption of the master plan. 4 bids were received on April 25th and range from $14.2 million to $21.3 million. The apparent low bidder was declared as non-responsive because of 3 significant errors and ambiguities in the bid. And after that disqualification, the low bid was $18 million, which was approximately $3.4 million over the available funds. The statute allows and authorizes negotiating with the apparent low bidder when the lowest responsible bid is in excess of those available funds. Construction management's protocol for value engineering was twofold. Staff worked with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder to identify options to make reasonable reductions to scope, and we then met with the designer to review that list for reasonableness and develop a proposal of cost impacts to implement the recommended changes. 5 options emerged from that exercise. Option 1 is to complete the project as bid. Option 2 is to explore cost-saving options, negotiate the bid to reduce the project scope, and then award a contract in the negotiated amount. Option 3 is to rebid the project with major value engineer items listed as add alternates. Item 4 is to redesign the project within the available budget. And option 5 is to defer the project. I'm now going to introduce Shawsheen Baker with Parks and Recreation and Cultural Resources to update you on the recommended option.
Thanks, Priscilla. Good afternoon. As Priscilla laid out, there are 5 options, and the staff recommendation is option 3, which is to incorporate additional cost reduction alternatives and throw the project out. Not throw it out, put it out there for another round of a competitive bidding process. As you all know, and as Ruffin just mentioned, the city has invested a lot of time and effort in this project, and we're definitely committed to delivering a final product that meets the public expectations. With that said, going through this value engineering process, we hope to see some competitive pricing that will help to bring some prices down closer to the budget. However, the level of the value engineering effort that we're conducting will be focused on minimizing impact to recreation and art programming and regular patron usage. And working together with all the departments together, we will be conducting the rebid process in a very timely manner. So the overall goal is to really, as I just mentioned, delivering a quality product with very minimum impact to programming, to public expectations, while being fiscally responsible. And we believe this option aligns well with that goal, and that's staff's recommendation. We will be happy to answer questions at this point.
As I was walking into here, the meeting today, I was prepared for us to move forward with this project and finding funds for this. But there's been some questions, and I want to ask our attorney's office concerning the bid, the qualified bid. Have they met the requirements that are needed? Or do we need more time to review that one?
Here's what our office has done, and you may defer to the staff for the other questions. There was, I think, a legal question about whether the lowest bidder was responsive or non-responsive, and that question was referred to my office, and several attorneys conferred with staff, and they concluded that low bid was non-responsive as staff had thought. So that was, I guess, was not to be considered. As far as the additional bids, no one from our office has been asked the question of whether or not it's responsive or not, but I think that the staff probably thought that it was, or they would have asked us, so I would sort of defer to them. We haven't been asked the question, so we couldn't answer that definitively from the table today, but I guess I would defer to them to speak to that more specifically.
So after the disqualification of the apparent low bidder. The low bid became the $18 million bid, and that is currently the lowest responsive and responsible bid.
Okay, so they're a qualified candidate for the project to move forward if the
Yes,
funding's
sir.
available.
Right, so, you know, a couple of things here. Did the original low bidder declare an error in his bid?
He did not declare an error, but as we reviewed it, we discovered the errors, and we went to the city attorney's office, and they were pretty substantial and ambiguous.
So, and that I can't even say it. Thank you.
Ambiguity.
Yes, is in the bid document, in the bid form, is that right? The bid
That's
tag?
correct. It's in
Okay.
the actual bid
But in
form.
reading the write-up that the designer, I guess, put on at the bottom of the sheet here that we were given, the second bidder also had the same problem. Instead of 3, he had 2, and the other 2 bidders also had problems in their bid form. So, to me, here's the legal question. If you disqualify the lowest bidder on that basis, would you not disqualify the other bidders as well for the same reason?
Again, we haven't looked at those. It depends on the nature of the error.
It's the same, it appears to me, to be the same nature.
They weren't the same nature.
Well, in reading this, it says it's a very similar nature. So I would like to raise the question. And if you need more time, I'd like to take more time to make sure we get this right.
We would definitely need more time. I'd have attorneys in my office who this is what they do, and so I would, instead of just from the table, I can't answer that. They would have to look through things and able for us to give an answer to confirm whatever staff said. I can't answer that right now without a little more time.
So Corey, I think what I'm hearing is no one is not committed to this project and finding the right person to make the project move forward. I think from a question of the table, in fairness to the attorney, I think Mr. Thompson is mentioning if we're going to exclude someone for some technical reasons, are we also not excluding the other ones for similar or like technical reasons? And we would probably need an answer for that before we can move forward.
Question.
And that should be able to be done by our first meeting in July.
That's not a problem at all. It's, we would just have to see what the errors were and compare them to whatever the law is with respect to that. Because again, there are different types of errors which are significant versus not significant, and we need to have the opportunity to review that. Or I wouldn't feel comfortable until we did.
Okay. So I have a question that's not related to these contracts. It has to do with when construction would start. When we move forward with this project, are we sure that the current park will remain open, the current center will remain open during construction?
Under option 3, which was to pursue value engineering options, we looked at the universe of options that could be exercised in order to bring this project into budget. One of those options was to make the whole site available for the contractor to work, and that would require that the facility be closed. So as we were evaluating options to reduce, closing the current Chavis Center was one of the options up for consideration.
Okay. I would personally ask, and I think from talking to other council members, that option is removed. That the option is removed as a value add. And for right now, I ask that we hold this here at the table to give our attorney's office time to look at these contracts, to make these bidders, to make sure that we're legally compliant and that we address this again on July 2nd.
I second that. And also, if it would be possible, could we, if you could give the council a list of value engineering items that have been discussed?
Repeat it.
There may be some that are actually on the backup documentation in the memo.
I was just looking through it. So anyway, if you could just send us the list of the value engineering items that y'all have been talking about.
Go ahead, you had a question?
Yeah, well, just a comment at this point. Obviously, the bond was approved in 2014, and there was a scope of work that we and the citizens anticipated. Obviously, market conditions have changed. It's a tight bidding environment. Materials and labor have gone up since then. But I really appreciate one comment that staff made during their presentation, and is that they are committed to meeting the public's expectations, and I am too. And so just from other conversations that we've had here about finding other funding sources to meet the public's expectations, I think that's really important for us to find a way and come back with some answers on that when it comes back to us as well.
Definitely.
From a funding perspective?
I think
Exactly.
I think we've had some conversations. I think there are some options there from a funding option. But like I said, I think the holdup today was this legal matter that was brought up by Councilman Thompson. So once we get that information back from the attorney's office, we'll move forward.
So, but of course, when we say we want to keep the facility open, that could suggest that could delay the speed with which the overall
Correct.
project is completed. And so I think folks are comfortable with that so long as it doesn't get into the fall of 2020. I think that could pose some real problems for people.
I think it comes down to Mother Nature and winter when they start construction. So we'll address that one when we get there.
I just think that's
But I think the
that's a
expectation
consideration.
I think the expectation that we've asked whoever builds this new center and staff understands is sooner is better, but we want to make sure we do it the right way. So thank you, and we'll hold this for 2 weeks. All right. Next, we have Brentwood Park Improvement Phase 1, 30% design status update.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm Dean Perry. I'm a project manager with the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department. The design for Brentwood Park Phase 1 has reached 30% completion and is being presented to Council for approval. In April of 2018, Council approved a new master plan for Brentwood Park, and this phase is the first implementation of the vision in the master plan document. To present the design and answer any questions, Susan Hatchell of Susan Hatchell Landscape Architecture will take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Great to see you. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because you've seen a lot of this in the past. The Brentwood Park is located northeast of the Capitol Boulevard and I-440. Nice, convenient location for many people. A while back, we presented the master plan to you, which shows renovations of existing as well as demolition and repair of existing and some preservation of the various things. And as usual, these things cost a lot of money, and we don't really have full budget to do the full park. From there, the committee, made up of citizens as well as public input processes, came up with Phase 1 priorities. And they really wanted to focus on the large playground and mist feature and a new comfort station and picnic shelter and improved entrance to the park and some renovations to the parking and access down to the lower area of the fields. So we're going to proceed, or we're planning to proceed with the comfort station, shelter, the playground, parking lot resurfacing, improved connection to Brentwood Road, and this will impact about 1.75 acres of the 19-acre park. The budget is $1.6 million. The site demolition plan, as you can see there, we're making some changes to the parking lot. We would be demolishing the restroom building, and eventually demolishing the playground once the new playground was built. The changes to the parking lot will reduce the parking lot a little bit and provide some more green space, impervious area, and clean up some drainage problems. So the site plan that we're proceeding with, the smaller area, you can see here the sidewalk coming in, the resurfacing of the parking lot, providing a drop-off and loading area, which is very handy for day uses of the park, if there's people dropping off and things like that. A new comfort station shelter combination we'll show you here in a second. And then a renovated, newly located playground for age appropriateness and kind of themed to water and the natural character of the site. So we've been looking at different playground equipment options, haven't really finalized them yet. We're working on that right now because this is a major cost item and a good way to stay in budget. We also want to complement other nearby parks, make sure that we're creating an exciting opportunity for citizens nearby and not doing a repeat of same equipment at every single park. So we're trying to work with that. In terms of site amenities, we're also selecting those. The majority of those will be surfacing and picnic tables and things that are familiar to the park palette, but we are using a mist feature this time, and again, trying to make sure we're being mindful of the budget with those types of items. The Comfort Station Picnic Shelter is a brand new, fresh design put together for us by Ellen Castley Architects. You can see on the left the men's and women's room with mechanical spaces, and then to the right and kind of an angle, 10 picnic shelter locations. So this would be very highly used and useful for the community groups there. These are some perspectives of the building. You can see the parking lot is that first upper left. The building opens to the parking lot, and the shelter kind of opens to the play area you saw in the previous plans. It's an attractive building and very unique to this park.
Question. Any natural lighting in that enclosed building?
I'm not sure that we're really there yet with those kind of details. The opening of that could possibly allow that. There is concern, though, about vandalism
Right, I understand.
and various things of that nature. So I'm not certain that we really have a lot of plans for opening or natural lighting, but I think that's yet to come. The schedule, we're here with you today in June. We're going to complete the design here in the next couple months. We need to do some permitting, and then we'll put it out for bid next spring. And with the 7-month estimated construction period, that would put us complete in the spring of 2021. So that's what I have for you today. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to go back to a slide or answer your questions.
Just on the same note, something as simple as the solar tube kind of a thing obviously is a low-cost way to get natural light in a space, and it's always nice to have natural light.
Right. I agree. Do we need to do anything?
Just approve us moving forward, which we were planning to do, so you can vote for
Then
that.
I move that we approve moving forward.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. Motion passes. Thank you.
Yay, thank you. We appreciate it, as do the citizens waiting anxiously for their park.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item, our interlocal lease license agreement.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. This is an interlocal license agreement with Brookhaven Park and a cooperation with the school system. So staff from Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources is here for the brief presentation for the agreement.
Good afternoon. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
So yes, very briefly, just to get you oriented on the cover page there, this is an interlocal license agreement that we've been working on for about the past year with Wake County Public School System. It's a connection between Brookhaven Nature Park and Wake County Public School System York Elementary School. It is in the Brookhaven neighborhood. Just to give you an idea, what they're doing as part of their their reinvestment is they actually have to demolish York Elementary School as part of their renovation. And as they do that, they went through the planning process, and the Department of Transportation identified that they were going to need a secondary access point to get into the facility. So they will have one lane that will be for car queuing, and they will have another lane that will be for bus queuing. So in order to accommodate that, the school system reached out to us as their neighbors and said, hey, we have a thing, and we could kind of use your help with it. And so, as we do it often at many of our locations where we're neighbors, figure out a way that we can work together. So what you have up on your screen here now is a schematic design that gives you an idea of what the New York is going to look like. The parking lot coming in from the west to the east is the access coming through Brookhaven Nature Park. Per their requirements, this, as you can see, will give them fire access to all sides of the buildings. It'll separate those queuing lanes, as I discussed. It's not a major bus route. It's only 6 buses that they will bring through there, and that's 2 times a day. So they'll be during pickup and drop off. So it's not a major pathway that's coming through there in terms of frequency of volume. They did need to expend their carpool length. And the other one is making sure the kids can drop off on the right side of the car. So as they went through their schematic design, these are the drivers that they had to work through to be able to navigate laying out that new building. I put this picture up here. If you look at kind of the dashed lines up there, the only word I can use to explain the Brookhaven parking lot as it exists today is wonky. It was designed very peculiarly. And as we sat down with the school system, we looked at some opportunities to really gain some efficiency. So what they have proposed is they will redo the parking lot, including the parking. They will put in curb and gutter. They will redo the asphalt. And that's what you're seeing up there is a picture that really is the bus pathway. They will come in through the bottom, go into the school, come back out through the top. The cross-hashed areas are the areas that will be new pavement that will go in. So it actually increases our circulation quite a bit, and we do not actually lose parking spaces. To give you a better idea, this is the final design. It takes those parking, makes very easy diagonal parking coming in, going out. There will be curb and gutter. Any trees that have to be removed will be replaced. We will create more planting areas out of the project because we'll be taking some of those weird configurations that we had in there now, turning that back into natural space and be able to plant those. One of the other real benefits is the increased access from the school to the park. There'll be a sidewalk that will go from our school to the park, which will allow the community to access through both properties much easier than they can now. And it really increases the functionality as I've gotten to. So working with the school system, we've been able to come up with a proposal that they'll do the capital work. We will continue to kind of maintain the parking lot as it exists today, where we'll do our regular blowing, maintenance, that type of stuff. But in terms of capital work, what we've agreed is they'll pay for it. And where we can do some spot work, our crews can do that. But if it needs capital replacement, that would be the responsibility of the school system. So we're asking approval from y'all today to authorize the city manager to execute this interlocal license agreement. It's a 25-year agreement that has 10-year renewal periods. As I talked about, it improves our asset. It improves access for the public between the 2 spaces, and it memorializes the responsibility of both groups going forward. So with that, I'll take any questions.
So 10-year renewals, so that's in addition to the 25?
Yeah, and in there's a clause that ultimately, if the property transfers from the school system, then that would terminate the agreement. But ultimately, as long as it continues to exist as a public education facility, then it would continue on.
So basically for the next 125 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Anything else?
Oh, that's it. Thank you.
All right. At this time, we're moving to our petition for citizens, but there's something I would like to say first. The next item on our agenda is our request and petition for citizens. This section of the agenda provides members of the public an opportunity to speak to the city council. Many of our residents appreciate this opportunity, and the council's values the input and participation of all residents. Raleigh rules ensure that speakers who have signed up to address the city council have an opportunity to share their opinions during this time provided to them. These rules also ensure that city council can carry on all of the business that appear on the agenda. I want to remind speakers and the audience important rules of decorum that apply to this and all city council meetings. First, each speaker has 3 minutes to make comments. Speakers can have additional written material provided to the city clerk, who will distribute the information to the city council. Please do not interfere with the next speaker's time, and please step aside when your time is over so that the next speaker can begin. Only individuals who have filed a petition to appear may address the council. You may contact the city clerk to file a petition for future meetings. All speakers desire an opportunity to talk with the council and should not be interrupted by the audience. Only one person may stand at the podium at the time unless they are providing assistance to a petitioner with a disability. Citizens' requests and comments are addressed to the city council, not individual members. Only the city council only the city council as a body can take action. All remarks must be addressed to the city council as a body, and I will remind the speaker about this provision if it is forgotten. I appreciate your help in following these fairly basic provisions to allow us to hear from everyone who has signed up to speak and to conduct all of our public business at today's meeting. To ask the audience to be respectful to all the speakers who will comment at this meeting and future meetings, and remind both speakers and the audience to be mindful of the set of rules set forth by the city code and the building rules for the Raleigh Municipal Building. Violations of these rules could result in a violator being asked to leave the meeting. So at this time, we'll have our first speaker, Peter Boyer. Is he present?
Hello, council members. First off, I want to thank you for your consideration of cyclists earlier on in this discussion today. And I was also happy to hear about the recent developments of the Person Blunt Street project. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the Oaks and Spokes, the bicycle advocacy organization. We are extremely excited about bus rapid transit in Raleigh, but we are concerned about the lack of a concrete plan to fund and implement the downtown bike plan at the same time. We know the council wants to create a strong multimodal system, offering more equitable transit options and promoting healthy, convivial physical activity. According to the Downtown Transportation Plan survey results, 83% of people would bike more downtown with a proposed protected bike infrastructure in place. So your constituents seem to be in agreement that this would be a good thing. Protected and connected bike lanes will help address the first and last mile transit problem, getting people quickly and easily to and from BRT stops. Bike lanes also increase safety for pedestrians, car drivers, people on scooters, Citrix cycles, and everyone that uses the road. Importantly, your downtown bike plan helps to accomplish the city's climate action goals. You have identified that that transportation is our city's largest single greenhouse gas contributor. So on behalf of all constituents, not just those on bikes, we ask you to direct city staff to create a plan for funding and implementing the downtown bike plan alongside BRT construction. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Peter, could you give your address for the record, please?
Oh, yes. It's 1908 Fairfield Drive.
All right. Thank you. And that's that all speakers, please give your name and address in the beginning. Next, we have Mr. Eric Braun.
Sorry, if you'll just give me a second here. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. My name is Eric Braun. My address is 3316 Rock Creek Drive, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27609. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. As you know, I'm an active, fairly opinionated, and engaged citizen, and I care deeply about Raleigh and our shared future. That's why I'm here today. I wanted to bring your attention to something that happened to me recently. On May 18th, I sent an email directly to Councilor Cox expressing a concern about his actions relating to some social media postings. On May 19th, Councilor Cox responded to my email. Part of his response included the following statement: "You are free to post and tweet whatever you want, but keep it truthful. For the record, I'm copying the city attorney, and I am including 5 tweets you posted 22 hours ago." The tweets that Councilor Cox reported to the city attorney were my commentaries on recent IndyWeek and News and Observer articles about Councilor Cox's actions as a city councilor. After thinking about his response, I sent a rather blunt reply questioning his motives and asking him to point out anything in my tweets that was improper or not truthful. I never received a response. I sent a follow-up email on May 24th asking Councilor Cox to provide a justification again for reporting my post to the city attorney. I also told him that if he did not provide a valid justification, that I expected an apology. Again, no response. Given the silence, I can only conclude that Councilor Cox had no valid justification and was simply trying to intimidate me. As you all know, social media is an important public forum for citizen engagement, and elected officials have to accept that their policy pronouncements and their actions as elected officials will be subjected to public scrutiny, even if it's harsh and undiplomatic at some times. I accept that my public statements and my actions will also be scrutinized and criticized, and I don't have any problem with that. But I nor any citizen should be subjected to any intimidation by an elected official. I still believe an apology is appropriate, but more importantly, I want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I want to say that I am not here because someone may disagree with my comments or they may believe them to be untruthful. However, I certainly don't believe they were untruthful. But you shouldn't be reported to the city attorney for something you said in social media. And I feel like either I should get an explanation or an apology. And I appreciate your time for letting me speak today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have a question for our city attorney. As far as council members sending emails to you, what right do we have, or what's the stance, legally?
I'm your legal advisor. That's all the power really that I have. I don't have any authority over anything else. The email was copied. It was said, I am copying for the record the city attorney. I think that happens fairly often, and that council members can copy me on whatever they would like to copy me on. I don't know that there was nothing that I saw that was unlawful or inappropriate about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that information. Next, we have Robert Kinzansky. Forgive me for any mispronunciation of your name.
It was a good attempt. Appreciate it. Mayor and City Council, thank you for your time your afternoon. Good afternoon to you. My name is Robert Kazansky. I live at 6335 Piedra Drive. I'm a Christian and a resident here in Raleigh, and by vocation, I am a missionary. Psalm 2 and Matthew 28 tell Christians, and particularly church officers, to instruct their rulers on God's word, and so I'm here to address the council briefly on the topic of abortion in our city. I'm going to read a few sections of scripture and then give a short exhortation in line with that. What follows, these are God's words. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Genesis 1:27. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. Genesis 9:6. You shall not murder. Exodus 20:13. For you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. Psalm 139:13. When men strive together and hit a pregnant woman so that her children come out, but there is no harm, the one who hit her shall surely be fined. But if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life. Exodus 21:22-25. From these verses, I hope the council can see that abortion takes a human life made in the image of God and is a wicked practice. Further, God's word instructs rulers to punish evil and reward good. It therefore follows that your duty as council members is to use whatever powers you have by virtue of this office to limit or end this practice in our city. So let me now offer you a note of encouragement. The tide against abortion is turning in this country, and I want to urge the council to have courage in the present moment by noting that there are towns like Wascom, Texas, Riverton, Utah, Roswell, New Mexico, and others that are now sanctuary cities for the unborn. Additionally, the council will note that states like Alabama, Louisiana, Missouri, Mississippi, Georgia, and Ohio have all recently passed laws severely limiting or basically outlawing abortion in their states. So the council has the ability to do something similar in this case. Jesus Christ purchased this country, state, and city with his blood, and so abortion can't but end here in Raleigh eventually. But whether the council is encouraged by this or not, the commands of God remain. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robert Firth? Peter Firth, I'm sorry, Peter Firth.
Thank you. My name is Peter Firth, 3640 Armida Drive, Wake Forest. And I am a follower of Jesus Christ, a Christian evangelist, and I'm here today to speak for a group of people who have no voice and apparently no representation. Those are the ones who are tucked away inside a mother's womb and are marked for destruction. These people are the unborn. They have every right to life that each one of us enjoys. We are guilty of the ultimate hypocrisy in that if a woman determines to have a child, she and her baby are protected by the full weight of the law. However, if a woman doesn't want the child, she has the legal option to kill that baby. No person has the right to play God or to choose in our society who gets to live and who gets to die. Many people tell me that they're against abortion, but their convictions are only as deep as their shallowness of their disingenuous dialogue. As leaders in the community, are you all right with the infant holocaust that is happening right under your noses? Do you side with the perception that parents have the right to murder their unborn children at any time, right up until the day of delivery? People are standing up and demanding that this evil in our land that is abortion be abolished. We have a history in our country of abuse and power that made possible the Native American genocide and the slavery of black people, just to name a few. The fact that it was immoral and wrong had little bearing on the minds of most people until brave warriors of the truth took stand against the evil and the wickedness in the land. In Nazi Germany, they did the same. People just looked the other way as the Jewish Holocaust occurred right under their noses. Politicians, pleasers of men rather than pleasers of God, turned their backs to the needy. We have our own Holocaust here today, and history repeats itself. Politicians, more worried about votes than governing in righteousness, pander to the lowest common denominator of society. We don't need leadership that embraces perversion and in the name of diversity for political gain. You leaders have been appointed by God for your positions and are expected to govern righteously according to God's perfect law. There is pushback now to the irrational godlessness of our out-of-control Supreme Court and government. Abortion is being outlawed, and it will ultimately be completely outlawed, just as other evils were in our past. God is expecting our leaders to govern in righteousness. They are failing, but at some point God will step in and do the job for them. But they will have to answer for their actions on the day of judgment. For those to whom much has been given, much is expected, and greater judgment will fall on them. We, like Ezekiel, are on the watchtower, crying out to a nation that is being attacked by evil forces whose aim is our destruction. We ask you that you make the city of Raleigh a sanctuary zone free of abortions. People are blinded and deceived by our enemy, Satan. He's been our enemy and a liar from the beginning. I realize that people aren't the enemy. We fight against principalities and powers in high places. May America be like this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Madam Attorney, can you provide what our legal enforceable rights are as a council on this matter?
On abortion, the United States Supreme Court and our general statutes, neither one of those would allow the city to regulate abortion in the city. That's the state of the law now, so I would advise you not to take steps to interfere with abortion at this time. I mean, and that's what the law is, and you're bound by it.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our public hearing. Number 1, tax exempt bonds, Ravenscroft School.
Mayor Pro Tem, I would just simply suggest you open the hearing. The city has no obligation or liability or relationship to the bonds. We're just required by federal tax law to put this on the agenda.
Okay.
You know what I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was ready.
All right. I knew you would be.
As soon as I saw him, I knew what he
So
was
first, I'll open the hearing. Is anyone here to speak on this matter?
He can. I think he has just one thing he needs to hear.
We'll do it. He's staff, so is he with?
He's not with staff.
Oh,
He's
okay.
with somebody
You
else.
have a chance to
the
speak.
attorney.
We'll open the hearing so you can speak at this time.
Okay.
I'm assuming you're
Jeff
for.
Poley with Parker Poe. Thank you for having us. I represent Ravenscroft School. We have a representative, Leonard Johnson, CFO of Ravenscroft School here. We are here to get local approval for some tax exempt bonds from PFA, which are not debt of the city in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
They would like to borrow money for improvements to their campus, and I'm happy to take any questions, or if you'd like to ask questions of Mr. Johnson, that works too.
Okay.
I'd move for approval.
What? I haven't closed the hearing.
Oh,
The hearing's
sorry.
still open.
I
Is
didn't
anyone here to speak on this matter? Anyone else? I close the hearing, bring it back to the table.
So I'll move for approval now.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have demolition of liens. I think this work, based on the background, has already been completed, so I will open the hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this matter concerning 4337 Old Pool Road in our ETJ? You can come forward.
Good evening. My name is Casual Jones Kelly. I'm here, yes, the project, the resident house has been taken down, but I'm here trying to get some information or find out exactly what's going on. From the beginning, there's been a lot of confusion in regards to this property. We were told that it was taken down back in December, and to find out it was online, and everyone that we spoke to, some of the people have left, and in calling, nobody could give us any, information. The thing is, after finding out that it was supposed to have been taken down, we found out that they had actually taken down the wrong property, and they had been looking at the wrong property all along. They were looking at 4327, which was a house that was completely hiding our property. Now, in the prior times my sister was here, I was unable to get up here due to the losing or the loss of both of my parents back to back, and my daughter, breast cancer. So I've been dealing with that. But now I'm to the point to give it my undivided attention. And the thing is, we were told several times that the house we weren't up to code, because we were told by Mr. Glover, which I now know that he's no longer there, hasn't been there for a while, that if we were to bring it up to code by boarding it up, which we did, but each time we would come back to a hearing, they would say, no, it hasn't been done. But now I do understand why they were saying that, because they were looking at someone else's property, which completely hid ours. This caused us to lose buyers. We were also told by Mr. Potter, that if we got someone that would buy the house or buy the property, and they would, take hold or they would do the demolitioning themselves or have that done or be responsible, that they would go forth with it with this buyer. Okay, but when the buyer came up here, we were all together, it was on the record, they said it's too late because it has been taken down.
Okay.
After then, we've been February 8th, they were denied, they wanted more time to, get that people to come in and take the property down at a more reasonable cost. and they were denied that. And it was because of the fact they said it was already in process.
Okay.
To find out February 8th, the property was still standing. I have it, the wrong property gone, house boarded up and everything.
Okay.
So
Let me do this. I need to hear from staff on this matter.
Right. Staff is here from Housing Neighborhoods, can speak to the item.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So this case dates back to April of 2017. Any correspondence between code enforcement and the property owners were done via certified mail, first-class mail, and posted on the property. These are some of the initial pictures that we took at the property. This is 4337. I know one of the pictures actually has that address on the front. List pendants were filed in May of 2017. We did find out that the owner had passed away in July of 2017, and we ran new property research through our city paralegal, in which we found a number of heirs. I believe there was 4 heirs that were involved, and we decided to wait and give them time for prospective buyers or find out whatever they wanted to do with the house. We gave them about another year before we brought it back to council for adoption of the demo ordinance. And that was adopted on September 18th of 2018. There were some delays with the actual demo of the house based on weather. I think there was an issue with the contract, so we had to start over with the contract. But the property was actually demolished on April 18th of 2019. Just for information, the demo permit was pulled for that house on November 2nd, 2018. So there was about a 6-month window between when the demo permit was pulled and when the actual work was done.
Okay. So we know it was the correct house?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. But can you also reach out to her and
Yes.
have that conversation and clear up any questions she may have?
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next, we have a public nuisance abatement. I will ask Councilman Stevenson. We'll see if anyone's here to speak as I read off the addresses. If you're here for one of these items, please definitely raise your hand. The first one is 3112 Bean Drive, 4400 Brockton Drive, 4404 Brockton Drive, 3204 Cradden Lane.
Mayor Pro Tem, the next one, 509 Cutler Street, has been paid and can be withdrawn.
Okay. So Cutler's withdrawn. 1107 Fayetteville Street, 1420 Garner Road, 2101 Hillock Drive, 524 Maple Street, 333 Meredith Street, 720 Oak Road, 6611 Paint Rock Lane, 5808 Ricker Road, 4830 Six Forks Road, and 4100 Wedgewood Drive. Is there anyone to speak on any of these? All right, seeing none.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. All right, motion passes. Next, we have a petition for annexation, 8410, 8412 Old Lead Mine Road. Before staff comes up, is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this annexation? All right, anyone to speak for this one? Anyone to speak? Okay. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. Can we have the staff presentation first, and then we'll open the hearing?
It's certainly up to the council if you would like to have the staff presentation. It's available. It's certainly up to you. you like to
Yeah.
have that? Okay, great.
Okay, I can bring up the slides. Give me just a moment and I'll pull that up. Okay, and there, that little bar interfering, there we go. All right, great. So this is an annexation petition for 8410, 8412 Old Lead Mine Road. Applicant, or the petitioner, is looking at constructing 57 townhomes on this property. Currently, there's a subdivision plan under review, S6818. It's 10.8 acres zoned OX4 CU. It's in an unincorporated county island. Essentially, it is surrounded by city limits on all four sides. So it's contiguous with city limits. It's in Raleigh's ETJ completely. Water and sewer can be extended to the site at property owner's expense. The property does have access to that. If you look here on the map showing utility location and the blue lines, you can see the water lines in green, the sewer access to the site. Current zoning, the surrounding uses are residential in nature, some office and mixed use. There's a retention pond on the property as well. Currently consists of 2 lots. One of those, if you see the smaller lot, I believe there's a duplex on that property. Showing you the street view, you can see the duplex in the background. And that is the site plan for that property for the 57 townhomes. And I can answer any questions you might have.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll open the hearing. I believe there's a gentleman here to speak on this project. Would you like?
No, okay.
Okay, all right, we will close the hearing.
Okay, so this is in my district, and I believe we have seen this previously, not this particular one, but this piece of property years back. But I know that this doesn't have to do anything with annexation, but there was lots of discussion from the neighbors to the south of there as far as water runoff.
Okay. See if I can pull up the site so that it's available for you.
As that pond is, I guess that's going to stay on the property?
Yes, it's part of the plan. If you look at the site plan,
Yep.
it's, pull that up. Yeah, so it's showing, it's a little fuzzy there to read, but it does have the area and it does have drainage easement. So, yes.
Do you have a copy of the topography of the site in this presentation?
No, I don't, but in the future, we can include that. That is one of the things that we don't normally have on the slides, but we can certainly include that in the future.
It might be helpful for us to, since stormwater is such a big issue, it might be helpful for us to see what the topography of the site looks
Okay.
like.
If you want, I can pull it up on iMaps. There's certainly those layers, but I just don't have it available on the slide.
Thank you.
So, sure.
All right. Any other questions? Any motions?
Yeah, I would just really like to, will we see this site plan?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay. No, I'm talking about at any future date.
No.
This is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just have to trust in the fact that we go through the process and this stormwater issue is going to be addressed in the approval process.
It would have to be for development services for them to give a final sign off.
It would follow the rules.
Yes.
Okay, that's important that we do because those folks are very concerned and they're downstream from it, so. I guess I'll move for approval then.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have rezoning Z419, Freedom Drive.
This is a request to rezone 17.2 acres from CX3 and R6 to industrial mixed use, 3-story height limit with conditions. The South CAC has a split vote here. The Planning Commission recommends approval. And if approved, this would amend the future land use map to business and commercial services. So you can see we're on the south side of New Bern Avenue here. Here's New Hope and New Bern, and this is Headingham becomes Freedom. This is Raleigh Beach that goes off this way. So we're east of 440 on the south side of 64. Aerial view of the site, you can see it's largely undeveloped just south of a school that fronts on New Bern Avenue. Fair amount of commercial at the New Bern and New Hope intersection. And then there is a neighborhood of manufactured housing on the south side of the site. You'll see a lot of conditions around that. A view looking north on Freedom Drive, south on Freedom Drive. The change in entitlement here, they're reducing their residential entitlement, reducing their retail entitlement, increasing the office permitted, and increasing the industrial square footage permitted. And then the front, the setbacks are changing only in terms of the front setback in the proposed district. So future land use map here is a combination of community mixed use and moderate density residential. And a portion of the site is in the mixed use center that follows New Bern Avenue, which is also designated as an urban thoroughfare. So conditions here, a handful of uses are permitted. The total development of the site is limited to 868,000 square feet of industrial use and 140 dwelling units. The conditions also establish an exchange rate for converting some of that 868,000 square feet of industrial to office and or retail. The maximum office retail combination is 114,000, and the maximum retail is half of that 114. So they could have 114,000 office, or with the max retail 50,000 square feet retail, 50,000 square foot office, in addition to some remaining industrial entitlement. It also prohibits principal structures north of the extension of Bullock Farm Road, which I didn't mention earlier, but it would come through here. A lot of conditions related to that manufactured housing to the south and the southern property boundary there. So a building setback of 50 feet, a building height limit of 45 feet within 60 feet of the boundary. There's a closed 6-foot fence required along that line. The conditions specify particular plantings, prohibit loading and trash service within 100 and trash and service within 100 feet of that boundary. Limit lighting height and require full cutoff fixture within 100 feet there, and then prohibit a couple of uses within 300 feet of that boundary. So significant deference to the manufactured housing to the south because it is a residential use. Overall, this is consistent with the comprehensive plan, despite being inconsistent with future land use map and the urban form map, that mixed use center designation. There are a handful of inconsistent policies there. Your future land use map, of course, the density transitions, even though they've offered all that deference to the residential on the south side, generally the policy would suggest that there should be not just a physical transition, but also a use transition, and the request does not address that. And then technically the mixed use center, the design guidelines apply to the portion of the property in the mixed use center area on the urban form map, and they are not consistent with that policy guidance. If approved, this would amend the future land use map to business and commercial services, so you can see what that would look like. Right now you have a large area of community mixed use there on either side of New Bern Avenue, and then moderate density here, residential here on the south side of that. To the west, you have business and commercial services, and so this amendment would really be expanding that designation on the future land use map to the east. Again, your Planning Commission recommends approval, but your CAC has a split vote. If I can answer any additional questions, I'd be happy to.
What else is around this property currently?
Let's go back to the aerial photo. So you have a fair amount of warehouse and distribution here on the west side in that business and commercial services area. You have manufactured housing here, some outdoor vehicle storage down this way, more manufactured housing on the farther east. and then mostly commercial on the north side of New Bern.
Okay.
And a school.
And a school.
And I believe the Wake County Board of Elections recently moved into that warehouse right off of Bullock Farm as well.
And do we know why what the reason was for the CAC split vote?
I could look at the staff report and see if that says.
Okay.
Or the applicant may be able to answer that question.
Okay. Well, what we do now, we'll open the hearing. It's 8 minutes, both sides. Those who are for this, we will let you go first.
Great. Good afternoon, Michael Birch with Longleaf Law Partners, here with Mr. Doug Watson, the now owner of the property, subject to the rezoning request. So want to touch on a few questions that have already been raised. First, with regard to the CAC meeting. This CAC meets at two different locations, one at Worthdale Community Center, the other at Barwell Road. Our first meeting was at Worthdale, very positive meeting, a lot of positive feedback about the use and the extension of Bullock Farm Road. The next month, when we went to Barwell Road for our vote, it was a different group of folks that were attending that meeting, so we had some additional discussion. Most of the concerns that we heard at that one were about traffic. And so since that time, we added that condition that limited the intensity of the overall development. With regard to uses, just to piggyback what Brian was saying, yes, so this is essentially all zoned and used for industrial or office uses. You do have the mobile home park here. The property down here is Pike Electric, the primary site contractor for Duke Energy. So they have pretty much store a lot of their trucks down there. On the east side of Freedom Drive, yes, you do have some outdoor vehicle storage here. You also have a number of other industrial uses that include equipment rental, as well as Dunn's Wrecker Service, who's been out here for 40 plus years and has plans on continuing being out here. Mr. Dunn attended our neighborhood meeting along with his son, and supportive of the industrial use, certainly much more so than any residential use which he would see as being incompatible with certainly his wrecker use, but also the broader uses in the area. We also received that feedback from the owner of the Sunbelt Rental building there as well as a follow-up to the neighborhood meeting. So council may recall seeing a rezoning prior to this on this site back in fall of 17. It was for heavy industrial. It was an outdoor storage of vehicles and kind of a parts pool use. Because of that kind of outdoor nature and the storage of vehicles, council denied that. Shortly thereafter, the family that owned the property reached out to Doug, given that he owns the manufactured or mobile home park to the south, and was in the process of getting entitlements to expand that. They reached out to Doug. He had an interest in the site, and so knowing that it required a rezoning, we sought a waiver of the 2-year waiting period, which council granted, and at the time we said we'd come back with a industrial mixed-use request, which prohibits all of the noxious uses that were allowed in the heavy industrial. So, and since that time, we've been working with staff on the rezoning request. So, with regard to the future land use map, much of the area that's designated residential is on the east side of Freedom Drive, and that is all zoned for heavy and light industrial and used for industrial uses. And again, the only real residential use in the area is this non-conforming mobile home park that is zoned industrial mixed use. And as again, the feedback that we received from our neighborhood meeting was the preference for industrial uses in this area that would be more compatible with what's existing there today. As staff went through, we did add a number of conditions to the case. We prohibited uses that were incompatible. Again, looking at the council's discussion about that previous case, we know that there was a preference for a transition to the school to the north. So understanding that Bullock Farm Road is going to come through the site, we have prohibited any buildings on the north side of Bullock Farm Road. We anticipate that's where we'll have a lot of our tree conservation area, so providing that transition, more of a transition to the school. We also obviously focused on transitioning to the mobile home park to the south through that long list of items that Bynum went over. We did receive a unanimous recommendation of approval from Planning Commission. Again, positive feedback at the neighborhood meeting, and really the one concern that we had heard at our second meeting from the CAC was with regard to traffic, and then we worked with staff to add that condition limiting traffic. But we think what we're proposing from an industrial warehouse use is consistent with what is there. We think it's reasonable and in the public interest given our conditions on compatibility. And then again, the extension of Bullock Farm Road connecting New Hope Road to Freedom Drive enhances the connectivity in the area and can take pressure off those two signalized intersections. So myself, Doug is also here to answer any questions that the council may have.
Okay. Any questions, or is anyone else here to speak to this matter? Doug, anything you want to say? Okay. All right. Is anyone here to speak against this project? All right. That being said, I close the hearing and bring it back to council. I was in attendance to the meeting when it was discussed and the conversation concerning traffic. And there was some conversation of housing as well being mentioned at that meeting. Looking at the current industrial uses that are already there, as well as Pike uses Freedom Drive to connect to New Bern Avenue, as well as they come out to New Hope Road. What I see in this area is really an light industrial area. And I think they've made some revisions to address the school proximity and creating a buffer. So that is definitely appreciated. Any other questions from council members on this?
I'm not going to be able to support this project, just because I believe that we don't have the kind of transitions we need for the affordable housing that's existing in the manufactured housing that's there currently.
Okay. Even though the owner of that
owns it also, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I have questions as well. I'm curious to know, when you look at the zoning map, it does show industrial uses out there. But the future land use map designates this whole area as moderate density residential. I was wondering what the history is behind the designation on the future land use map, because this will result in a change in the future land use map. And I guess the question whether or not are we going to honor the vision of the future land use map, or are we going to make a change to it today?
I would ask city planning staff to respond to that question.
I don't have a good answer for you about why the future land use map is like this. It does not match the current use very well. Clearly, the people who drew the map and the council that approved it were anticipating a different use pattern here in the future that has not happened in the time since the plan has been adopted.
Yeah, and I guess I'm wondering if we need to review that first before jumping into a rezoning that will change the character of the future land use map.
Is that 3 years or 4 years since adoption?
The future land use map was adopted in 2009.
9, okay. I was thinking 13, 9.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been a fairly
Good amount of time.
Yeah,
yes,
10
ma'am.
years. Only one person was here. Do you have any ideas of why? Not to put you on spot,
I don't
council.
have anything to add beyond what staff has already said.
Well, the other concern I have is that there is an extensive mobile home park along Patriot. And so there is a fairly substantial residential presence in this area as well.
And to the south. Those two yellow labels there.
Can I go back to your conditions? Right. No, keep going. I'm sorry. Right here.
You wanted to look at this stuff?
No, the previous page. There was some, let me see if I see it here. It is, no, exactly, limited total development of the site, 868,000 square foot industrial use and 140 dwelling units. Can you address that piece there?
Yes, so those numbers were being driven by the amount of development that is allowed on the property today, and then also looking at, from a traffic impact analysis, kind of when that would be triggered. And we arrived at these numbers, at least at the zoning stage, that would not require a traffic impact analysis. That's not to say that a traffic impact analysis won't be required at site plan, but at the site plan, then you know exactly kind of the actual size of the use that you have, and the actual mix of uses. And I think this condition also reflects the fact that some industrial uses are all industrial, and the reason we have the ability to exchange is because some industrial uses also have they might have a retail component where members of the public can come in, not just contractors. And so we thought that doing a TIA at that time where we actually know the mix of those internal uses would be more appropriate. The number of dwelling units, that's less than what's allowed there today. Given that it's allowed on site today, we kept that in there, but that was driven by the conversations around limiting traffic.
Is there a plan to put any dwelling units?
There's not. This is, given all of the industrial around the property, the plan is to do similar type of warehouse development. There's been a huge amount of demand for that in this area, given the transportation infrastructure, 540 to the east, New Hope connecting south to 264, and New Bern Avenue there, and the access to the two signalized intersections. That from an economic development standpoint, this really kind of fills in that gap of industrial. And I would say just, council members mentioned the mobile home park to the east of the site. That is, again, kind of in this area here. That is certainly kind of buffered, but in between this site and what's going on kind of the back side of all of these industrial uses, only then do you get to that manufactured housing. And I would say both that manufactured housing here as well as to the south are kind of have been there for an extended period of time. That's why, and both from that standpoint and given the affordability of those current units, and again, Doug having sought to even add some additional units from the Board of Adjustment and got approval for that, wanting to preserve and ensure an appropriate transition to that use. But we think given the character of the traffic on Freedom Drive, particularly driven by Pike, but also the wrecker service and all of these industrial uses here, that the character of the traffic on that street is very much industrial. But we would appreciate the opportunity to continue to work with council to address that transition to the south. And if there's any broader, conversation that we need to have about the future land use map, but we'd like to continue that conversation.
Okay.
Can I add also, keeping in mind also that mobile home park that we own is a non-conforming use, so it's already industrial. So could be, so we're not, taking away from it either.
So what I'm going to do is move this to GNR for some discussion and conversation, and then at appropriate time it'll come back before council.
Second.
Do we need a date certain?
If you are going to continue the hearing, you should continue it to a date certain.
Okay. Do I need to reopen the hearing?
Yes, you should leave the hearing open.
Okay. So I will reopen the hearing and move it to, I was thinking second meeting in September. Yep. Okay, so that'd be September 17th. Is there any?
Yeah, I would be curious, just from the council standpoint, if there's any opportunity for us to defer this 2 weeks, give us an opportunity to address some of these issues. If they're not addressed, then go to GNR. The only reason for that is because of the kind of economic development opportunity that's been presented for this site. That timing in September would kind of severely hurt that. We understand at the end of the day we need to address what council is doing, but if there is the opportunity for us to be able to address that between now and July 2nd, we would very much appreciate the opportunity for that. And then if we do need to defer it to GNR for more conversation, we certainly understand.
I'm open for having conversation with you, Michael, about the project and bringing it back on July 2nd. If we don't have something resolved, then moving it out.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so we'll hold it at the table for,
Hold it at the table.
table for 2 weeks and leave the hearing open.
Continuing.
Yep,
Okay.
all right. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know where your computer is.
Next we have rezoning Z 3618.
So, Bynum, before you begin this one, I just need to
Go right
read
ahead.
a statement related to, pardon me, to Z 36 before the public hearing begins. 1 minute. Zoning case Z 3618 is hereby removed from the Growth and Natural Resources Committee.
Is that a motion?
No, statement.
Wow, okay. Which one?
Z 36.
Does it need to be a motion?
So this hearing was left open,
Fine.
was continued to today from its opening 2 weeks ago. And it's a request to rezone just under an acre from DX5 with shopfront frontage to DX12 with the same shopfront frontage and some conditions, extensive conditions. Planning Commission and the Central CAC both recommended approval. It was discussed at Growth and Natural Resources Committee on June 12th, and as of this afternoon is no longer in committee. I guess it's really up to the council what action you might like to take.
Thank you.
All right, we've had the public hearing for this.
No, we have not.
We didn't?
Yes, sir, you have had the public
Yeah.
hearing and it remains open.
Okay.
So
Is-
it would really be up to you if you want to hear from that applicant
The
today.
applicant would like, I think, to address the council.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Bullington. I'm with Clearscapes, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant, which is 4DH Partnership. We appreciated the opportunity to come last week to the GNR committee meeting, and as you remember, we talked about the public benefit of this project through the preservation of historic structures that really contribute to the unique character of the warehouse district, and also creating public space within the heart of this district. The concern we heard was with making sure we have the path of most certainty to achieve the historic preservation goal. And to that end, since that committee meeting, we've been working closely with Councilmember Stevenson and also the city attorney to revise the language of conditions 2 and 3. And I'd like to read just condition number 3. If you remember, this has to do with how the exterior improvements to those historic buildings are regulated. So the maximum height within the footprint of the existing structures are within 123 feet of the right-of-way of West Martin Street shall be 5 stories. All exterior improvements to the existing structures as defined in Condition 1 shall comply with the United States Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, which shall be determined by the Department of City Planning, Historic Preservation, and shall be a condition for site plan approval or plot plan approval in the event site plan approval is not required. And then Condition 2 was similarly modified to include the same language. So with that being said, we're prepared to submit these revised conditions in order to move the project forward.
Okay, so what we'll do, we can close the hearing.
Yep.
Closing the hearing gives you a chance to add conditions, and we can bring this back July 2nd?
Yes, that's what my motion said.
Oh,
You
okay.
just read it, but
Oh.
that's it.
Sorry. All right, so,
Just for clarity, I think some of the things that people need to understand is that GNR heard this, wanted to make some changes to make sure that we were dealing with the historic preservation part of it. The city attorney and the applicant were able to work that language out. So that's why we found the need to bring it back today, let them speak to that, move it out of Growth and Natural Resources, and then set the hearing for July 2nd.
okay, all right.
Did you get a second on that?
No.
Second that then.
All right, it's been moved, and I'm not sure we needed a vote, but we moved and properly second to bring this back on the 2nd. July 2nd. We closed the public hearing. So the public hearings are closed so they can add conditions.
Come back as a special item with
Yes,
the new
ma'am.
addition.
Special item. All right. Thank you. All right. Next, we have text change.
This is, this is really an admin thing for staff. Not you in particular, but it is true in this case and in the previous case where the applicants have used like 1-point type to put an extensive condition into the little box.
There's a reason for that. It's a technical reason. I'll explain it later.
Well, so Z3 said see attached, and we got it at the same kind of font that the rest of the document is in. It
Very briefly, it's because the document is divided into sections. You can't see them really. And so when you put your text in there, it automatically resizes it.
My point, though, is if you can't get it to stay a standard size, it should just say see attached. So we don't have to get trying to read the micro type.
So we do our very best to provide good guidance to our applicants.
Thank you.
Okay. Text change TC
Good
to
standard
19. Thank you. Text change TC to 19.
Freedom Drive, the second condition. I can't read it. My goodness. Blow it up, it just gets blurry. Hit me glasses, that doesn't mean.
Enlarge your screen.
Good afternoon. I was looking up here for my presentation, but I don't see it loaded on
Might
here.
be in that box right over there. Keep going, go up to the next, go to recycle and go down.
Recycle.
Go down, try that. Is it in there?
No, I do not see it in there.
Okay.
Okay. Well, fortunately, this is just a text amendment, so I think you have the text in front of you, so we can make do with that. This is TC2-19 for design adjustments. This text change would modify the approval process for all the design adjustments in Chapter 8 of the UDO. When the UDO was adopted in 2013, new regulations were put in place in Article 8 for blocks, lots, access, and streets. These regulations apply to subdivision and site plans. With these regulations, a new process known as design adjustments was included in the UDO. The intent of this process was to allow for modification to the standards in Article 8 under certain circumstances. These would include requirements for minimum block perimeter, street right-of-way width, and streetscape elements. The process was reviewed by city planning staff along with the city attorney's office, and it was determined that a more objective process needs to be put in place, and it needs to be reviewed in a quasi-judicial manner. This text change is moving that review to the Board of Adjustment while it's being further reviewed by staff to come up with a more long-term resolution. The requirements by which these are reviewed would remain the same. It will just be moved to the Board of Adjustment for their review. Again, this is a quick fix and a more long-range or long-term solution is being developed by staff at this time. The Planning Commission has reviewed this and recommended approval.
Okay.
Staff is
All right.
available for any questions.
All right. I will see, is anyone here to speak on this? Anyone here to speak on it? Anyone here to speak? All right, I'll bring it back to council.
Do we have a expectation of when we will have when it will be out of the Board of Adjustment into a different way to look at these from a quasi-judicial?
Well, the staff has already conducted several meetings on this, and we're still in the process of, we have more meetings to come on this, so it hasn't been fully vetted as of yet. I don't feel comfortable giving a time frame on that right now, unless Robin may have something to add on this, but.
I think that there was a goal, and I haven't been in all these meetings. There are several people from my staff. We've got a lot of people putting input, and they've come a long way, that they're going to have a goal to get it, something to present to the development community at the beginning of August. Is that correct? Yes.
Okay.
And then we didn't want to get too many cooks in the kitchen right at the beginning, although we got a lot of cooks now. But I think by then that we'll have something concrete so that, as we said, the development community can comment, and hopefully we'll get it back as soon as possible. We made a lot of progress, or they have. I've been sort of on the periphery, but it's going well, I think.
So I might just make a request that you keep council in the loop as to where we are on the process.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I move to, I move to adopt the consistency statement dated June 18th, 2019, contained in the agenda material to approve the ordinance.
Second.
So moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that's all right. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Now we move to our committees reports. EDI will be meeting in August. I will have a date certain, probably at the next meeting. Next, we have our growth and natural resources.
So as we know, Z319 has been moved out of Growth and Natural Resources Committee, so I only have one to report, Z2518, 4315 Lead Mine Road, so that the applicant can continue to work with questions that were asked in the GRNR committee for the district representative. I make a motion to continue this case until September 18th.
Second.
All right. It's been moving and properly second and continue this one till date mentioned. All in favor, say aye. Should be
Aye.
quick.
Your previous discussion was about Z36,
Yeah,
not
previous
Z3.
discussion about was a different one, but
Was the Martin Street case?
5.
yeah, we're on Z25. I'm gonna go back to that one.
Um,
The Z3, she missed
Right.
it. I'll go back to it.
Z,
So Z2518, you're asking to
Alright.
keep that in committee. That's
Yes.
what the motion was.
Yes.
And you said September
September 18th.
18th. Is that our next council meeting? Or
Yes. Well, no, it's not the next one,
It's the
but
next
it's the one
GNR.
scheduled.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So all those in favor say aye. All right. Motion carries. That's for Z2518.
I'm sorry.
Z319 is the one that you're recommending, based on the notes, is the recommendation is for the public hearing to be July 2nd.
July 2nd. Thank
All
you, I'm
right.
sorry.
So,
Is that a motion?
that's a motion.
Second.
All right, so moving and properly second for Z319 for public hearing on July 2nd. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
And due to conflict in scheduling, Growth and Natural Resources Committee will not meet on June 26th. We will all enjoy our summer vacation and will resume Wednesday, August 28th.
Okay. All right, healthy neighborhoods.
Yes, I just want to make note, with nothing to report out today, but make note of our next meeting will be July 1st. I believe it'll be the standard time, 4 p.m. here in the council chamber. We will have two items that may be of interest to folks. One is a report. It's something we held in committee last time, but it'll hopefully be a report back from Downtown Raleigh Alliance to discuss potential parking reductions in the downtown zone. The second item will be to consider whole house short-term rentals in residential zoning for a limited number of days in a year. Thank you.
All right. Transit and transportation, no report, but we will be meeting on June the 20th. That is this Thursday at 3 o'clock here in the chamber. All right. Next, we move to council concerns. Councilman Cox.
Yes, I don't really have much. The one thing I want to bring to staff's attention is I've been receiving a lot of concerns lately from people concerned about the striping on the roads. They say it's very hard to see where the edge of the road is, or the middle of the road, particularly at night when it's raining. And so I was wondering if maybe we're doing something different, or maybe we could do something different in order to improve that.
Do we have a list of which roads that we can direct them to kind of look at?
It's like all of them.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. We'll follow up.
We'll review what our practice and get you a report.
Okay.
No report.
No report. All right. I have two items. The first one is an update I'm asking for an update from Parks, Rec, and Cultural Resources. Hopefully I said the whole name right. Sanford Road Park Shelter, where we are with replacing that shelter that caught on fire. Just get an update there. Because I also know there's some re-engineering has to do with lighting as that shelter as well. So just get an update. Can be the manager's report. So that is fine. The other item I have is, a few months ago, I asked staff to look into hosting an event for the community where we can have a conversation about gentrification and its impact on our neighborhoods. An event has been scheduled for next week, and I encourage everyone to come out. We are excited to have Kristen Jeffers, the founder and editor of The Black Urbanist, as our guest speaker, and we have a fantastic lineup of panelists. Pamela Weidman from Housing and Neighborhood Services Director, City of Charlotte. Kia Baker, Executive Director of Southeast Raleigh Promise. Yvette Holmes, Vice President of Resource and Development Partners, DHIC. Asa Fleming, President of the North Carolina Association of Realtors and Realtor Allen Tate Realtors. And Paul Kane, Executive Vice President and CEO, Home Builders Associations of Raleigh, Wake County. The event is free, and we ask everyone to come and attend. It will be held Thursday, June 27th at 6:30 p.m. Doors open at 6. It will be at the Fletcher Theater inside the Duke Energy Center for the Performing Arts. Again, the date is Thursday, June 27th at 6:30 p.m. and it's free. And it's a conversation about gentrification and its impact in our neighborhoods here in Raleigh. So I look forward to everyone coming out and participating and attending. That's all I have.
I just have one item, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to ask staff for an update on the hillside sloping site study for infill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Pro Tem, we have, for a few of us golf fans, we know that the U.S. Open was held this past weekend at Pebble Beach. I'd like to point out that we had 2 Raleigh natives that played in that tournament. Chesson Hadley, who played his high school golf at North Raleigh Christian Academy, finished tied for 9th place. And Webb Simpson, who played his golf at Broughton High School, finished tied for 13th place. So congratulations to both of those guys and their families. Very, very challenging course, and what a wonderful field. Also, on our rules of decorum that we passed recently here at the council table under the requests and petitions of citizens, I would like to add the following item. All comments shall be addressed to the council as a whole. Addressing individual councilors is not permitted. So I'd like to make that a motion.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and probably second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you, that's all.
I just want to thank Wayne Miles for coming out to my District E meeting on Saturday to talk about stormwater management. We had a really good discussion with a lot of interested residents who were very passionate about the subject. So thank you, Wayne. And I'd also like to thank the staff at Laurel Hills Community Center for once again supporting the meeting.
Okay. All right, I have one more item. There's a District C meeting this Saturday at 1214 East Lenore Street at 9 a.m. from 9 until 11. And it's also it is also posted on the city website. Now we move to appointments.
Arts Commission, you have 1 vacancy. Judy Payne received 5 votes, so would be appointed. Appearance Commission, 2 vacancies. William Dodge received 5 points. 5 votes, so would be appointed, leaving 1 vacancy. On the Historic Cemeteries Advisory Board, you have 5 vacancies. Robin Hammond received 6 votes, and Councilmember Crowder nominated Melissa Timo. So I assume you could appoint Ms. Hammond, and which would leave 4 vacancies. Human Relations Commission, 1 vacancy. Brian Laws received 5 votes, so would be appointed. The RDU Airport Authority, Nancy Patrick received 3 and Seppi received 2, so it will be carried over. The Raleigh Historic Development Commission, you have 2 vacancies. Heather Leith and Catherine Pate each received 5 votes, so would be appointed. So you've completed that committee. The Raleigh Transit Authority, you have 1 vacancy for a regular member and 2 vacancies for alternate members, but no nominees. Substance Abuse Advisory Commission, 2 vacancies, no nominees. Stormwater Management Advisory Commission, 1 vacancy, no nominees. And included in your agenda was the Raleigh Sister Cities. They have 3 vacancies. but somehow I left them off of the ballot, so they will be added back on, and that's all I have.
All right, I want to nominate Morris Clark to Raleigh Transit Authority
On the regular or an alternate?
as an alternate.
Okay.
Mr. Branch, I do have somebody to nominate, but I'm not prepared to nominate them today, so I'll nominate them on the second.
Leave
Okay.
the nominations open.
Okay, would you give me the name again?
Morris Clark, Cook.
Cook.
Morris
Okay.
Cook, sorry.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all I have.
All right, we have nothing under nominations. Madam Attorney? All right, Madam Clerk again?
The first thing I have, you have a number of sets of minutes: the May 14th work session, May 21 lunch work session, June 3 budget work session, June 4 regular session, and June 10th budget work session for
Move adoption
consideration.
of the minutes.
Second, it's moved and properly second for approval. All in favor say aye. All right, motion carries.
The next item, you do have a proposed resolution relating to rebates, refunds, and adjusting, rebating, and refunding penalties, exemptions, and relieving interest for late listing taxes.
Motion to approve?
Second.
It's moved and properly second. All in favor say aye. All right, motion carries.
The next item, in the continuing effort to look at the efficiencies of the various boards and commissions, the Housing Appeals Board, it's suggested that this be eliminated and the appeals go to the Board of Adjustment. This would require a text change, so if you're in agreement with that, you would direct staff to draft a text change to go forward through the text change process.
So,
So moved.
All right, it's moved and properly second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
And I think that's all.
There's a surplus property,
property.
0 Watson Street.
Well, that's what I thought. It's
The adoption resolution authorizing the sale of property to Roderick E. Hodge for $4,000 plus advertising costs of $1,782.85 and authorize appropriate city officials to sign necessary instruments of conveyance. That's
You
the
make a
motion.
great city clerk. Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye. All right, motion passes. All right. A motion is in order to enter closed session pursuant to GS 143-318-11A3 to consult the city attorney to preserve the the attorney-client privilege to give instructions concerning the handling and/or settlement of potential claims, including Borland Pierce, Building LLC versus City of Raleigh, and 2, Hand of Hope Pregnancy Resource Center versus City of Raleigh, as well as GS 143-318-11A5 to instruct the city staff and negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken in negotiating the price and other material terms of a proposed contract for the acquisition of real estate property by purchase, options, exchange, or lease. So moved.
Second.
All right, it's moved and probably second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are now in closed session. We are returning from closed session. As we concluded, we have given staff direction on the matters that were mentioned, and we are adjourned.